Good evening, race fans, and thank you for tuning into DRL TV. My name is Getty Buckner. Tonight I will be joined by Martin Wenzel, and it will be our pleasure to bring you live action of the DRL Cup Series. Tonight we take on Talladega Motor Speedway for 94 laps. Located in the heart of Alabama, this super speedway is the largest oval that the NASCAR circuit has to offer. But for the first time in DRL history, Talladega will be run without a restrictor plate. A combination of aerodynamic manipulation and a tapered spacer keeps these cars in check the same way a restrictor plate did, but with one noticeable difference, and that is more side-by-side racing. Now, as these drivers continue to get ready for tonight's event, we bring in Martin Wenzel. Martin, you've always been vocal about this type of racing that we've had the last couple of years at super speedways, you know, it being rather kind of boring almost and very difficult to pass. From what you've seen, do you think that this new package has improved the super speedway racing overall?
Well, the races I participated in this week, official races, I did a couple A Cup races and then a couple B car races, which we run in the Grand National. And both of those were, well, at least the A one, I kind of got wrecked out early. Those ones got wrecked early, the other ones. But one of them, the A one, we went most of the way, and it was too wide most of the way, two lines. Both lines were kind of moving forward and then moving back. You know, one line would get the upper hand, the other one would get the upper hand. So there was no definite preferred line. People were willing to go high or go low. And yeah, I think it's going to be much more exciting today with this package than we've seen. Hopefully it doesn't go single file. And you know, you mentioned that you did a league race, another league race, where it kind of went single file, and that was out of choice because it's 94 laps, and that might be what happens. That just might be something that, you know, that might have been what happened years before too, is that we could have gone too wide, and it just doesn't make sense to, you know, be driving like that on lap 20 when that's where you're going to see wrecks happen, when you got too wide or, you know, potentially a 3 wide. That happened to me in the first day race I ran. I was too wide. I think I was in second place. I was in the front pack, and I kind of just slid up just a little bit, and the guy behind me moved in and pushed me out. Now it's 3 wide, and I'm getting past, and then we run out of room. At one point, I think I pinched just a little too much and wiped out the whole field. So,
well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much.
If you're single file, you're probably not going to have that as often. You still will have. We saw it in the official or in the NASCAR race itself, where you'll be on a bumper and maybe you move over and you snag that guy, and so there'll still be wrecks. But single file, I think, eliminates a little bit of the risk factor.
Well, one thing that does happen anytime we go to a super speedway, Martin, it opens up the door for some of the guys that maybe have been having a rough season so far. You know, we're going to bring in a driver now that has been kind of, you know, his season hasn't been going quite his way, but anytime you come to Talladega, that can change. We're going to speak right now to Taylor Butcher Benjamin. Do you have a copy?
Yes, I do, Getty. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Now, as we know, Talladega can be, you know, a place that, you know, a driver can come and turn around his whole season. The beginning of your season has been going, you know, pretty decent, but I know that you want, you know, there's some results there that I think, you know, you felt could have been better. Now, when you come to Talladega, is this the type of race where you're kind of aggressive because you know this is an excellent opportunity for you to go out and get that win?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be controlled aggression, though, of course, because you know what can happen, especially with this new package. 3 wide basically the whole time, and especially with this huge field, can't afford to get caught up in anybody's misfortune. But yeah, I'm excited about it. Feel like I've got good speed, I mean, even in qualifying here, and I feel like I can stay up front if I get up there. But certainly got to manage the temperature, manage the inside checkups, and just manage, you know, just the race entirety, and hopefully be there at the end to compete for the win.
Well, good luck in qualifying, Taylor, and hopefully we see you at the end of this race as a top 3 finisher, buddy.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Now, Martin, the last time we went live, we were at Richmond, and we saw Wade Hustad finally get that win. It was in absolutely dominating fashion, but, you know, there was There's only a few cars there that decide to participate at Richmond. I think we had less than 20, but tonight we have a little bit of a bigger field. We kind of expected that, of course, because it is Talladega. Now, when you come to a bigger field, you know, I feel like what number here tonight is a good number that, you know, fills up the racetrack but also doesn't cause so much chaos where it's just a wreck fest.
I think we're at it. I mean, usually, this is probably one of the smallest fields I've ever seen at Talladega for our league, because usually it's, pushing 40 cars out there.
Mm-hmm.
And just I think the lack of participation from the Cup Series guys, some guys have just been turned off by the new package. And so there are quite a few drivers out there today who are not series regulars. And, usually past seasons, a lot of non-series guys also try to get into Talladega in the Cup cars. But this year we definitely opened it up a little bit more. We've had restrictions, but now we've opened it up because of the lack of participation. And I think a few of these guys are going to show up pretty regularly to see how they can compete in this top series. Guys like Dakota Wilkins, Jeffrey Meyer, Jeremy Hebel, those guys are all truck guys. William Edwards, Robbie Armstrong, the truck champion. So there's a group of guys. Gary Cronenwet, he's coming up. He's on your team. Him and Mike Lemon are both on the SGK team down in Grand National, and they're coming up here today to race. And they might be up here a little bit more often as the season goes on, just to help fill out this field.
Yeah, in an effort to make sure that it was still competitive, it was kind of an invite-only list. We handpicked a few drivers that we thought best suited for the A series. It's almost like a tryout for next season, but it benefits them. They get some seat time, and it also benefits the racing because, especially here at Talladega, Martin, one wreck can take out and damage 8, 9, 10 cars, and what's left. If we have a smaller field, what's left after that. But to your point, we have seen in several different leagues and in the guys that were diehard A drivers before, they've kind of gone down to B or maybe back to trucks. The official racing we see on iRacing, the numbers have increased, but that's because the new package has created so much more parity, it seems like. So
I think that's definitely something. We've had guys, and I've mentioned it myself, but I broadcast, so I'm not going to be able to get out in the car. I think you wanted to get out in the car tonight, but circumstances forced you up into the booth. But the Cup car is almost it feels it's easier to drive than the B car at this point. So, I'd rather almost jump up in the A car, even if I'm still not competing. It feels a little bit more fun to drive, at least in my skill level. And there are a lot of guys like that who in the league and in officials that, the A car, this new package is fun, but then you have other guys who they feel like, well, now I don't have to have the skill. It's not fun anymore because I'm not, there's not a separation between me and the other guy who's just jumped into the car.
Right. No, it's almost.
I still think there is. I still think it's like, if you're a guy like Anthony Burrows, Wade Hustad, you're still separated from most of those guys.
No, well, and that's absolutely true. But we've seen some guys that I see. At some point, everyone who iRaces is here for a reason. It's because they love oval racing, they love road racing, they love it all. It's only a matter of time before these guys kind of stop pouting and come back and get back to racing. I think right now it's almost like their way of, they're trying to stage a little bit of a mutiny here, and letting everyone know that they don't really like this thing. But at the end of the day, you can't take the competitive drive out of some of these guys. So, and that's why we still have a good sized field here. These guys, do they like the new package? Maybe, maybe not. But are they here to race? And absolutely they are. But
yeah, it's still a little disappointing seeing some of the names that you're not seeing, not showing up. It's good to see Eric Wolf out there today. Steve Turner, he's come back to race, but we're missing big names again, like Anthony Burrows. This is it's like second straight race, I think, that he's missed.
Yeah,
we were talking to Taylor Benjamin. talk about Taylor Butcher Benjamin. He's ninth in the point standings. He's ahead of Anthony Burrows in the point standings. Now Burrows does have the 4 wins, so he's got those bonus points going into the playoffs. But
Right.
the standings look kind of weird because the guys that you'd expect to be at the top have just not been showing up as often. There's been a little bit of a exodus, as we were talking about, of guys who just don't like the new package.
Well, and we saw last year with Eric Wolf and Anthony Burrows both, they did not have 100% participation, but I think Burrows had, eight wins or something last year. You know, there was no way he was not going to get into the playoffs at that point, as long as you meet the minimum requirement for playoff participation, which I believe is somewhere around 80%.
Yeah, I doubt we're not going to see. I doubt we're going to see a season without Anthony Burrows here. I mean, he's going to come back. It's just been a couple weeks, and it's good to see Eric Wolf. I hope Eric Wolf is out there to race today. We saw earlier this season a few races he would come out, run a lap, then park it because just didn't have the time or had family over or something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
Just trying to get that participation credit. I guess that's what you got to do. It's not really in the spirit of what it means, but he's a guy. But he's a guy. He's a guy that's like I don't have a problem with him, showing up and competing if he gets in the playoffs. That was him last year. He said, "Hey, I'm not going to come out. I'm not going to come out and race in the playoffs and take up a spot." But we definitely, I fought for him hard during the season, saying, "Hey, we need to make sure that these guys who should be in the playoffs, even if they don't make that 80% or whatever, there are certain guys like Eric Wolf that's like, well, he made it, and he made it on points. He made it on points, even though he didn't make the 80% cutoff to get in on wins,
right?
Because he got on wins as well, but he didn't have that 80%. But he made it on points because he was a guy that would finish top 5 every time he was out there. The few times he was out there last year.
Well, shifting our focus here to the start of this race, the guys have just started moving here. Let's try to pull in Steve Turner here real quick. He is our pole sitter for today's race. Steve Turner, do you have a copy, sir?
Yes, sir, I do have a copy.
Well, a great job qualifying. You sit atop the grid. Now, necessarily here, it doesn't necessarily mean a whole ton. Track position is still pretty key. Is your goal to stay up front and fight to stay, in that top 5 area, or are you just going to try to fall back? Is there a game plan here tonight?
Yeah, we got a few teammates in the race, and I'm just going to feel how the race is going. If it gets too aggressive, I'll probably drop back. But I didn't think I was going to qualify in the pole. I was actually going to go to the back, but now that we're in front, I'm going to try and hold it, like I said, unless it gets too aggressive up here.
Well, you talk about having the teammates. Do you think that is actually an advantage here, having numbers in the field?
Oh, definitely. We're in a bunch of NIS this week, and I found that the more cars you stack together, the better you are. But also, the 2-car tandem drift is back in place, so it'll be interesting to see how that works tonight.
Awesome, Steve. Well, good luck tonight, and hopefully we talk to you at the end as a top 3 finisher.
All right, thanks, guys.
Did he just mention tandem drafting?
Yes, he actually did. One thing that
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of that this week, but it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
The closing rate, because of the amount of air that the lead, because of the amount of the air that the lead car cuts, just the huge hole. The closing rate is huge, which allows that 2-car tandem to kind of be a thing. It's not going to be super substantial, but I think we'll see some guys do it, and we're gonna, it's possible tonight that we see, 2-3 wide racing all the way around this track, Martin. I'm so excited. And
we're going to the green.
Yep, the goofy thing.
Just want to watch the issue here, though. We got number 44. He's, I think he's starting 3rd. He's on that outside line. He's blinking, so he's going to be trying to get down, or maybe he'll go outside. But he's going to have to stay in line because people are not going to get down on the inside. Yeah, now he's going to have to get on the outside and drop back with that blinking issue.
Well, green flag here at Talladega, 2x2. It takes about a full lap or so to get these cars up to speed. We're going to see a lot of different situations tonight, Martin, with these drivers doing, dropping to the back or try to charge their way to the front after maybe a bad qualifying attempt here. So these first few laps, this is going to be, we're going to see what people's game plan is almost immediately.
Yeah, we already see. I mentioned 44 is going to try to drop back. Looks like everyone's kind of getting single filed. That might be if I was out there racing, I'd be trying to get into the bottom line right now, regardless, just because that 44 is trying to drop back. I don't want to get a 3 wide situation.
Right.
Everyone else though looks pretty good. We got a move by I think that's Robbie Armstrong.
And Joseph
it actually
Held
makes contact, and that's going to start a wreck.
It takes out our defending Cup champion Wade Hustad. My good, and Taylor Butcher Benjamin also involved. My goodness, lap 2, Martin. I did not see that coming.
I saw it. I was watching the 93 come up, and he had the 32 behind him, and I think he had just so much momentum with the 32 pushing him. He clips. Yeah, he just clips the left rear end of the 02, upsets him. He gets into the 88 on the low side. 88 goes into the yellow line. He corrects it. Spencer Tart. It's a little loose.
And Richard Springer, Spencer Tart, Taylor Butcher Benjamin, Wade Hustad. Looks like Gary Cronenwet, driver that you mentioned just earlier, gets involved. Not sure how much damage these guys have. You can get about 20-30 seconds of damage because of the amount of aerodynamic.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to just analyze this. I'm looking at, obviously the 02 gets upset by 93 Robbie Armstrong going by. He gets down into the 88 of Logan McAnally. Logan McAnally, not too much trouble for him. He goes down below the yellow, stays straight. But Spencer Tart sees that in front of him, he kind of slows up, and that's where the 8, I think, either bumps him or he just snags the apron a little bit. He goes out of control. That collects the 8.
What we're going to do is we're going to ride with the biggest part of the wreck was in the back. We're going to ride along here with Gary Cronenwet and see what he saw. He checks up, and Musil turns Harmon down, and it looks like the 41, the 22. I mean, there's just a big pinch point there. Eric Wolf actually gets out of there clean, remarkably.
Well, they're all just trying to avoid. It's really, you got the 02 on his hood sliding right into their path into those 3 cars, the 22, the 41, the 10. Alexander Russell coming up on that going, wow, I back out and almost get caught in the wreck anyway.
Right. Well,
so really early on, we lose Wade Hustad, Joseph Helt. Those are 2 really good drivers. Yeah, just unfortunate situation. And that was, Hustad was pushing the 93, was giving him that speed, ends up getting collected along with the guy in front, Joseph Helt.
Yeah, and as we see before, I mean, there's really no fault, of the. You said the 93 there. I believe that is Robbie Armstrong.
Yeah, it was more an issue. Yeah, it's like he just had so much momentum. It's like they were just flying. That was that 2-car tandem. And that's the first time I've seen it where those 2 cars, it was just 2 cars flying on the outside line. There was no outside line to speak of except for Joe Helt hanging up out there, racing the leader. And then suddenly you just see this 93. You see the orange Hardee's car there coming up, just flying. I didn't see who was behind him. I just saw this orange car coming. I figured that was Robbie Armstrong, and I started calling. It's like, here comes Robbie Armstrong with a head of steam. And there he goes, suddenly bumps into the 02, and everything starts from there. He was just moving. He was faster. I think if Joe Helt had not been there, Robbie Armstrong and Hustad would have flown past the leaders at the rate they were going. It was really a sight to see.
Well, incredible wreck. Just lap 2 early on, we lose our defending Cup champion and points leader, Wade Hustad. He has already retired from the race. Significant damage there. A lot of guys got some damage. We'll see. This might be the tale of 2 packs here. The guys that don't have damage versus some of the guys that have, 20-30 seconds of repairable damage. But a lot of guys still sitting on pit road here. We see, as you mentioned, Logan McAnally, who got pegged on the side.
He's got a little bit of damage, yep.
But we're going to take this opportunity to step away, get these cars cleaned up, and we will return for our first restart of the night, lap 494 here on DRL TV.
the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing
Race lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Look to the outside as Kroenke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's Howley down to the inside.
trying this contact though. Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Leonard drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
And welcome back to DRL TV. Set with one to go here, about a half lap till we get the green flag. Martin, we've already kind of seen, not the big one, but we've seen a big enough one here. A lot of cars getting some sort of damage, whether... I didn't see a lot of cars take a lot of damage on the last caution, but there are a lot of cars that took some damage.
Yeah, a lot of front end damage for guys. The guys that are out there are great. Gary Cronenwet's probably the furthest up. He's in 8th, and he's got a little bit of a crumpled front end. Probably, where is Taylor Butcher Benjamin? What place is he
just
in?
behind him, 2 rows.
That's the next guy. Yeah, he's got Hebel in between them. Hebel's got a clean car, it looks like. And then Taylor Butcher Benjamin a little bit crumpled up.
Yeah, from my experience though, looking at the front of Gary Cronenwet's car, with the amount of air that these cars move in front of you, if he's down on horsepower, obviously that's going to affect him greatly.
That's the issue. It's like how much damage to the engine itself do these guys have? Because
but I think he could get away with. I think he could get away with some. I mean, we'll see as soon as the flag drops.
Yeah, we'll see. That's behind him. He's got Jeremy Hebel with a clean car. Dakota Wilkins on the inside with a clean car as well. That whole inside line is clean right now. It looks like Alexander Russell's still blinking. He's going to probably, who knows, he might drop back.
Right. Well, and another thing with
definitely
this...
don't like having a blinking car at Talladega or Daytona.
Right. with this wreck that took out a couple competitive cars, this opens up the doors for people like Theodore and, Chris James, who are in the top 5 right now.
Now we saw Mike Springer. I just saw Mike Springer fly out on the restart before. He switched lanes before the start-finish line. That's because the car in front of him is really low on power. The rest of the guys behind him did not follow his lead, maybe fearing that they might get penalized. I don't know if that will result in a penalty or not. But I think that is the 93 actually who was slow on the start.
Well,
yeah, that was the 93. He was really slow on the start. He's getting the EOL, but I'm not sure why he didn't get going there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are several of those cars back there that they were just involved in that incident, so maybe they're deciding that being back, off the lead pack isn't such a bad thing.
Okay, Robbie Armstrong's going back down pit road, so he's got some issue. I thought I heard that maybe he had a pedal issue. Alexander Russell's having some trouble dropping back, and Ryan Hesgaard giving him a little tip: let your foot off the gas.
always with the.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, always with the very, very clever, almost obvious statements there. We are riding on board with Chris James. Now, one thing that we're going to see a lot of here tonight, Martin, is engine temperature management. We're looking at Chris James, how close he is to the 26. You can only really stay that close to someone without, trying to duck out and get air to that engine for so long. And, we could see a lot of issues there, with people trying to pinch on that outside line. If you're trying to duck out and get air and you start dooring the guy that's maybe pinching you a little too hard, we could see more situations, kind of like what we saw in that first wreck where it's just 1 inch of contact caused all that damage. That's all it was, and it doesn't take much here.
Well, that's the dangerous thing, and we saw it in the actual NASCAR race as well, is that you're right up on that guy's bumper, and if you try to duck out for a little air, you might still be connected to that car in front of you by the air or whatever, and take him with you and then turn him. Or when you're coming back, you might pull out, and then you come back, and you're just a little too close, and you snag that left end or the right end, and whoop, there goes the guy turning sharp to the right or to the left and taking out the rest of the field.
Now we're looking out of the back of Jim Westerfield's vehicle, looking at Gary Cronowet. We asked the question, is that too much damage to continue? But it looks like right now, especially with how much the inside line does have to check up, it looks like that's able to keep Gary up in the front of the field here, and he also does have a teammate behind him that could be, if he does kind of lag back a little bit, that teammate's going to help him, and he's going to be able to push him back up front. So far so good for the 10. Trying to find where Taylor Benjamin is. He's the last car on that inside line, so some of those guys, I mean, if you got that kind of damage this time last year, your race would have been over as far as being competitive. But right now, with the aerodynamic situation that has been introduced here, it's not, like we said, if you're not down on power, you still have a chance.
Well, it's interesting. That inside line, you're constantly letting off the gas. You're often not even on the throttle completely most of the way, unless you're pushing like Gary just did there. Just gave a nice shot to the back of. Who's that right in front of him? Too close here.
The 4 of Jim Westerfield.
Yeah, but that you're often just on. You're probably maybe 90% on the throttle at the most a lot of the way, especially going into the corner. As soon as you hit the corner, you have to really back off on that throttle, otherwise you're going to suck right into the guy.
Well, that brings up another good point.
Let off a little bit, you're taking out the field, and the blame's all on you.
Right. Well, another good point is, right now, Steve Turner is running 100% throttle, as is the 78 of Eric Hutton. But just behind them, these guys are able to save a little bit of gas, which, the fuel window is, here is anywhere between 28 and 31 laps. So, right now, Steve Turner, actually, he's absolutely saving no fuel. The guys behind him are able to, so if Steve Turner has to pit early, hopefully, assuming this goes green, hopefully he has a teammate that'll go in with him, because Steve Turner could go from leading this race to, after being green flag pit stops, you know, after they cycle out, he could be over half a lap down running by himself.
Oh, I'm just watching how close these bumpers are getting, and I'm watching now the 70. I was watching the 82 and the 26, and now the 78 and the 4. And the 4 came up, and the 78 was not flush to him with that bumper. And I thought for sure that was going to be a wreck, but here comes the 82 now giving a nudge to the 26. And just that little bit of wiggle just is so scary, because that's all it takes, and the guy could be going sideways.
Well, another thing that, you know, we always, you know, we talk about the chaos here at Talladega. We're riding on board with Eric Hutton right now, trying to push the 4 to the lead. And you look in his car, and you see that it just kind of, it doesn't really seem all that treacherous. But if we pan out, and you see all the movement of all the different cars, the different lines, it seems like, yeah, it's barely controlled chaos. But inside the car, it's actually not too bad, and you know, that's the weird, unique thing about the super speedway racing.
Yeah, if you're something just happened. I mean,
Chris James blew an engine.
Out.
He blew his engine.
Was he not paying attention to that test?
It doesn't take much, and we just spoke about it. Let's try to get a replay of that.
Wow, I heard it go. I didn't see anyone else going in the air and crashing. Wow, that's very good work by, I mean, Gary Cronenwet got a little bit of a bump there, so he's going to drop back. Hopefully he can get back in line, because he does not have the front end to be able to drive for long on his own.
No, he gives him a little,
pretty good.
Yeah, gives him a little bit of a shot there, but Chris James, talk about losing an excellent opportunity to get a good finish here. And we'll see. We saw Gary with that crumped up nose, which obviously he didn't need any more nose damage, but he has some now.
Considering the position Gary was in there, because Gary was kind of to the inside of where Chris James and Steve Turner were. So when he blew his engine, Chris James almost went down the middle of the two lines. But because he was able to slide in front of him, he just made a, like Gary, you know, Cronenwet there it was kind of a flush bump with Chris James, as if he almost was bump drafting him.
Well, this is something that these drivers have to take notice of now. We mentioned it already. It doesn't take long for these temps to kind of get out of control here. Eric Hutton, you can see him kind of peeking in that middle line. Mm-hmm. The only problem with that is lining up, you know, because even while you're peeking out, you're still getting a run on the guy in front of you, and before you hit him, you have to line back up and hit that bumper, especially in the corners here. So,
yeah, Hutton's been doing a pretty good job of that, and now we see Jeremy Hebel getting in there. So these guys have been doing pretty well, actually, with drafting and getting right up on the guy bumper in front of them, getting nice and lined up. And getting nice and lined up before they make that bump, because some guys, they get up on the guy's bumper before they're squared, or they're squared, and then just as they get to the bumper, they kind of swirl. And sometimes it's just the better part of valor or judgment, whatever that saying is. It's like, if you see that guy kind of wiggling in front of you, and you just can't get lined, just hang back a little bit. Just give him the push with the air. Don't try to give him the shot or anything.
Yeah, and
you'll be able to survive that way.
Yeah, and we can see just it's almost harder to stay off of the car in front of you with just that huge amount of aerodynamic increase that we've had with this new package. It's almost like before last year. Right now, we'd be single file, and there'd be almost a full car length in between each single car. And now, I mean, it's completely different.
The 78 and the 99, that is a shot right there.
Oh, we see Gary Cronenwet
take a screenshot. Whoa, kind of pinching down a little bit there.
We see the 99 have to lay off, and this is where we're going to see the outside line, inside line make the most moves. We see the 99 have to lay off with Steve Turner just a little bit to get that air back, try to cool his engine down, and that's going to give the outside line an advantage for a little bit until they have to do the same thing. So it's going to be back and forth all night long. And if we get enough cars towards the front, you're going to see a third groove manufacturer up to the wall. I've seen it a few times before, so as we get into the later stages of this race, it's going to be very, very interesting. And that, you know, Martin, that's when one little mistake can take out so many cars.
Well, that is the big difference. Unless you've done a league race or you did NIS, the official races are only about 30. The B races are 30 laps. The A races, these Cup cars are 35 laps. Well, this is 94, so there's going to be a lot more things that can happen, and that third line, yeah, can come into play later in the race, where you might not see it in this first 30, 35 laps, like an official. I'm just watching the 78. He gets right. I mean, he is underneath the fourth bumper. And there have been times where he's not flush with it either. He's, you know, almost a half lane down, and I'm surprised nothing bad has happened. It's just somehow he's able to. He's just perfectly lined up. I can't even think the direction-wise, but he's not turning him, even when he's not perfectly flush. You see the 99 and the 78 just perfectly locked on to those guys in front of him.
Yeah, and if you're going to hit somebody not square, if you hit him to the outside right of that bumper, kind of where you see the 70 is lined up right now, the 78, you can get away with that. It's when people hit them on the inside left of that rear bumper that it turns them so fast, because obviously these cars are loaded, especially in the middle of the corner. You know, the springs are loaded just because of the fact that they're riding on 33 degrees of banking, which, by the way, is a few more degrees than the standard roof pitch of North American homes. So these guys have huge banking, and you know the springs are loaded, and that's when you see a lot of times entering corners, just like what we saw with the 02. It doesn't take much contact for you to lose complete control of your car.
Yeah, we have a new leader for now, Jim Westerfield. He pulls in front of the 26. The 26 sucked up to him so fast they had to let off the throttle. And now, unfortunately for Eric Hutton, he's been left hung out to dry.
Well, and
he's going to kind of start dropping back a little bit.
This does benefit him a little. You know, it does give him an opportunity to cool that engine off. But yeah,
get some fresh air.
They are losing some of that gusto that they had earlier when they were just flush with the leaders, and now they're about 4 rows back.
Yeah, what's interesting, and I noticed during the officials, is that you'll see this where that outside line will drop back about 3 or 4 car lengths, and then suddenly everyone will just get close enough to each other, and it will start pushing again, and it will move.
Well,
even with 2 or 3 or 4 cars like we see out there right now, if those 2 or 3 cars that's out there taking out in and out behind Mike Springer, Springer's going to let him by.
A line, the most important part of a line is the car that's directly behind the first car in line. So right now, on the inside line, the most important car is the 26 Steve Turner. How aggressively he pushes that leader is how fast that line's going to go. And we saw on the outside line that John Mullins is giving a very conservative, amount of space between he and Eric Hutton, and all of a sudden the outside line completely failed, whereas the 26, as you saw, was so much closer to the 4 car, giving them a little bit more speed. As 26 makes a move down to the outside, no takers though.
Yeah, the inside line's actually checking up a little bit, backing up, pulling out. And that is so tempting when you're coming through, especially the trials area. You have such a run at that second place car that you kind of jump out. And if you don't have anyone with you, though, you're going to lose that momentum.
Yeah, but watch what the 78 and 26 are going to be able to do here in just a second.
Yeah, here they come. This is what we saw with Robbie Armstrong and Wade Hustad.
And Hebel decides... almost exactly what we saw earlier. He decides to try to come up and block that car, and the 26 was absolutely not having it.
Yeah, Joe Helt wasn't trying to block him. He was already out there, but Hebel was trying to get in front of that train, and you're not going to be able to get in front of even those 2-car time. Look how fast that look at that gap they already have. Wow. That's exactly what Robbie and Wade were trying to do, and they just, you know, Robbie just did not get high enough to get around the 0-2, and that's what brought out that first caution of the day.
Well, and that's part of the growing pains when you come up to Cup. If you haven't run a whole lot of Cup, because obviously Robbie is a truck driver, the Truck Series driver, if you're not aware of how fast that closing rate is, you're just not going to know how fast you need to adjust for it. And we saw kind of a little bit of the inexperience there. You know, take out a couple good drivers and a couple more are damaged, but it seems like of the drivers that are in the back, what you would maybe consider off the pace, those are guys that are there deliberately. We'll fall back to this pack back here. You know, we've got Mike Springer, William Edwards, Thomas Harmon, Eric Wolf. All these guys don't have any damage at all, and they are back there on purpose. But if obviously we fall back even further, about 34 seconds off the pace, you've got the 41 of Chris Lucky being pushed by the 21 of Richard Springer. And we talked about not having any nose damage, or having a little bit of nose damage is fine if you can stay, you know, in a pack. And these guys were not able to, and now look how far off the pace they are.
Yeah, we're still, you can see the 44 on the outside around them. He's blinking in and out. And I wondered how long the race control is going to allow him to do that, because you can see puffs of smoke as his car comes back on the track, skidding. And if I'm Ryan Hesgard right now in that pack, Ryan Hesgard, Wolf, Harmon. Harmon's got some damage. He was collected in that first wreck, but, you know, again, it's that same situation where it's no real front end damage, just a little bit of that rear end. Yeah, these guys have kind of, they're just hanging back right now, trying to stay with the front pack.
Well, one thing I'm doing right now, Martin, is we're looking at the RPM meter of Robbie Armstrong. Right now he's running about 7,500 by himself. Yeah. Let's go up here to Eric Hutton. I know this is always well documented, but he was running 8,200, which is about a difference of 10 miles an hour at least. Robbie Armstrong ran that last lap. He ran a 51.9, where the leaders are running 48.8. It's not going to be long before he's swallowed up.
even if he had a friend, he'd still be running. You got Lucky and Springer back there. They're about 7 miles per hour slower than this main pack. So that is what it is at these kind of super speedways. It's all about the pack racing. And I'm still watching Eric Hutton. There was that last stretch. He was on the bumper, and he was on that left side. He was kind of shaded to the left while he was pushing. So dangerous game, but it hasn't bitten him or the 26 too bad yet.
Not yet. There's certain points on the racetrack that you kind of consider the no-touch zone. Through the trial and corner entry is certainly, you know, by popular consensus, two places where drivers don't want to be pushed. The safest place is obviously certainly on the backstretch here, but we've seen them get fairly aggressive in the trial hole, and it doesn't take much for, especially if those cars are kind of near that yellow line. It doesn't take much to turn them right into the grass. So Eric Hutton has found that balance between being aggressive and, you know, still being somewhat safe. But, you know, can you do that 94 straight times is the question.
Yeah, they're coming up on Richard Springer and Richard Lucky. And the rest of the field, it's gone single file. Mike Springer's still hanging on the outside. He likes to run the outside a lot. I think he's also trying to stay away from the 44. He's now at the tail end of the inside line. He's not going to be able to do that, though. He's going to have to get in and just hope that Russell doesn't somehow blink ahead of him.
Right.
Which I don't think he will. If you can get in line, I'd rather be behind that car and in line.
Well, you
let the 44 blink behind you, because you don't need the 44 quick.
No. And you really don't need to push here either. If you can stay a couple car lines back, that's more than plenty. As we see Mike Springer continue to kind of peek out here, whether he's trying to keep his engine completely cool.
I was going to say that inside line had all kind of lined up. Hesgard had sucked up and no two groups. And we see Gary Cronin wet. He kind of jumped out. He's now got about a little bit of a second line throwing with that rear group of cars, including Wolf and Harmon, Edwards, and Hesgard. And they're making a move. Now, I don't think it's going to be much of a move because I think this inside line is actually going to pit. So that might actually be what the move is. They're just getting to the outside because here they all come. That inside line is scattering, coming down to go pit road. So now your front two guys are Musel and James Lorello.
And this
Gary
is
Cronin went pushing on the outside.
And this is going to be key. Green flag pit stops. One thing that we haven't really talked about is pit road. These pit boxes are so slippery. It doesn't take much to slide through them, as we see the 26 actually did there just now.
Well, and you're coming in, and even before that challenge, you're coming in going 190. You have to get slowed up while you have cars right on your bumper. And so if you slow up too fast and the other guy doesn't slow up as fast as you, he's driving through you. If you go too fast, now you're speeding and sliding in and then taking everyone out when you hit those brakes really hard. And that was a really good job by that group of cars to come into pit road. Really good job to communicate so that everyone can go into two lines, the guys staying out. We got a three-wide battle here between Chris Lucky, Dustin Buell, and Taylor Butcher-Benjamin. I think that was more of an issue that Chris Lucky just kind of got bumped out.
Well, how long before this next pack goes in is the question. And another thing that we've talked about, or we haven't talked about with the damaged cars, you see Taylor Butcher-Benjamin has a little bit of rear end damage, Morello has a little bit of nose damage. Will those cars be able to line up later on in the race and push each other with the damage that they have? Because obviously that's not going to be the same as two drivers with clean bumper hitting each other. There's going to be a little bit more of a X factor, if you will.
Yeah, these guys have to be coming in really soon because if I remember right in the official race, we went green most of that race from the beginning, and we had to pit around lap 29. Well, these guys, we had a caution lap 2 to lap 4 or 5, so they're right at that cutoff mark for fuel.
Right, and these guys they've been running a little bit of a slower pace. This is the group of drivers that was kind of in the back, so maybe they were able to save that extra lap of fuel. But I anticipate they should be going in, if not this time by, then certainly next time by. And here comes Gary, James Sorello.
Yeah, they're all coming down now. You can see how look at the different braking speeds. Thomas Harmon almost passed those guys coming in, which is not an issue under green play. You can pass.
Now, Taylor Butcher-Benjamin does decide to stay out. So that's 32 laps that Taylor Butcher-Benjamin has been able to go on fuel. Eric Wolf, Mike Springer, and Chris Lucky are the last drivers that we have seen not pit yet, but the entire field behind them.
They're sucking up fast, and the problem with Butcher-Benjamin is he's following the 44 who keeps blinking in and out. Now, the 44 and the 64, did those guys pit? Because they were in the tail end of that field, and now suddenly they're getting rolled over by these guys remaining.
Something happened with John Mullins' pit stop on pit lane.
I'm assuming those two guys pit.
Yeah, the average time for pit road was about 37 seconds. John Mullins was about 40 seconds, which means he probably lost the draft when he exited out, because he was one of our leaders on pitting, and now he is at the tail end of all the drivers on the lead lap here.
All right, so now it's who's all teamed up here, but I believe that's going to be Steve Turner is going to come back into the lead, right?
Yeah, Steve Turner, as soon as
the field is basically exactly what it was going in on Steve Turner, Eric Hutton, Jeremy Hebel, and Jim Westerfield, your top 5, top 4.
And Mike Lemon has been quietly inside the top 5 for most of the race today as well, as we see John Theodore is able to hang with this front pack. going back to the next pack, which is about...
What happened to Gary? Yeah, Gary Cronenwet fell back. I'm not sure what happened to him during that pit sequence. He went in. Well, I guess he went in with that second group, right? He went in a little bit later, so take back what I said. He's where he should be. He's right around those guys.
And now we're watching guys kind of jockey for position here. One thing that the second pack doesn't want to do is start getting into a two-wide battle of these guys in front of them are single file, because they will lose speed. They'll lose probably almost a half a second each lap if they can't go single file. They need to coordinate immediately.
Yeah, I think you can see Thomas Harmon, he's already cutting down. I think Ryan has, they're just going to work together. These two guys, Hedsgard, Wolf, Edwards. I don't know if Weasel should jump out there. Weasel should stay down, get in single file, catch back up to that lead pack. Because now you got 4 and 4.
And Ryan Hedsgard is 4 seconds back of the bumper of John Theodore, who is the last car.
Eric Wolf trying to sneak in, gets in there. Those guys had to really check up though. Got pretty dangerous. It was just wide enough for him to squeeze in. Problem is that forced a couple guys behind them to bounce back out to the outside line. So they're not getting single file, which is what I think they need to do. Now Wolf comes.
I think Wolf decides.
Wolf looks like he wants to drop back.
Yeah, he's had enough of these shenanigans here. Yeah, and while they're doing this, that last time around they lost 0.4 of a second on this lead group. So this lead group is only 7 cars, but it is.
And there's no communication right now. No one's coming over saying, "Hey, let's get single file so we can catch up with the main group." And they're just driving around. And obviously those S2R guys are probably in a channel together communicating. James Lorello in the 3, Thomas Harmon, Ryan Hedsgard, and Bill Edwards leading this little group right now.
And it seems like, yeah, they kind of got the memo.
Get single file now.
Now Ryan Hedsgard is known for being a fairly aggressive driver, but one thing he's got to make sure that he's doing a good job of controlling that temp, even if he's a little anxious to catch that top group again. Because we saw what happens.
5 second gap between Edwards and John Theodore. So they got some work to do, but if they can single file, James Lorello can close this gap. Shave about 3/10 of a second off that time, so they're getting into the groove now.
Well, while these drivers continue to chase down the lead pack there, we're going to take a break here on DRL TV. We will return shortly with our next set of green flag pit stops, assuming we have them, and then we'll take you to the finish.
the most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And welcome back to the Dega 250 for the DRL Cup Series. One caution so far, just finished green flag pit stops about 15 laps ago. More than halfway done with this race, Martin. So, how has this race unfolded for you, and what do you suspect going forward that you'll see here?
Well, we had a pretty exciting start. You kind of mentioned it as we were on the break talking, how it's kind of gotten a little, green flag always kind of does this where you split up the field. And so now we just got these packs, they're all single filed. So, but listening in on the radio, there is a lot of communication now going on with this lead pack, talking about rotating the leaders so that not everyone's burning, one guy's not burning all his fuel off. Steve Turner, you just saw Turner pull out to the outside. He's dropped back. He's now in third place. He's going to let Hutton drive in front for a while. I'm sure Hutton will rotate out and the 99 will take over. And that was coming from John Theodore. And John Theodore is running now fifth. He was kind of mentioning, hey, we should rotate, give everyone a chance to run a few laps in the lead.
Well, now one thing,
burn off that fuel.
One thing we're seeing kind of a bigger gap between like Mike Lemon, John Theodore, and Jim Westerfield, and this has allowed that second group that was about 5 seconds back the last time we checked. This lead, back from the lead pack. This is now they've cut almost 2 seconds off. They've got 3 seconds to go here. So the second group here, Martin, does have some gusto. I'm sure the fact that half of them are on the same team might be an advantage.
How much of it is, that the 38 and the 27 can't suck up, or if they're, again, if this is fuel saving strategy at this point. I think if they were sucking up, they're actually saving more fuel though. So,
well, at this point, I mean, they're already halfway through their fuel cycle. They are 17 laps in. Speaking about this front group led by Eric Hutton, they are more than halfway through their fuel run already. And
I think he said, I think I overheard them say, it was like they had to get to like lap 64 or 62 on this run to be able to get it all the way to the end. After the, picking up fuel, obviously, on the green flag stop. So within the next, 15, 13 laps, this group is going to be thinking about getting down pit road. And that's where they were talking. It's like that they need to rotate, because if Turner is out front the whole way, he's going to have to come down sooner. And if they come down sooner than lap 62, 63, the group's not going to be able to get to the end without going for another stop. So that's why we see the 78 leading right now.
I don't think that's going to last very long. We're looking out the cockpit view of William Edwards, and these cars are getting a lot bigger, a lot faster. As soon as William Edwards catches the draft of Jim Westerfield, they're going to be there, and the first thing that those guys are going to do, and I'll tell you right now, the first thing that the 75, the 2 are going to do, they're going to jump to the outside here, and all of a sudden, things are going to get real interesting.
And then I'm wondering the strategy for these guys, for the 75 and the 2, for this backpack. Are they going to, is the 2 going to, rotate out in front to lead some laps? Because 75 has been leading this charge. Here he is, coming right up on the bumper. He's got to move out. There he goes. Yeah, he almost waited. I think he waited just the perfect amount of time. If he had waited just a split hair of a second longer, it would have been that situation that we saw with Robbie Armstrong and Wade Hustad all over again, where it's just he didn't get outside quick enough with that.
Well, interestingly enough, there was those 2 or 3 cars were able to break away from the rest of this pack, which is now led by Gary Cronenwet, which if I were to pick a car that was going to lead me up to the next pack, maybe might pick somebody like Eric Wolf, who has a cleaner nose.
Yeah. Or at least rotate. I mean, James Lorello would even be a better option. I mean, it doesn't have perfectly clean nose, but it's not as mashed up. Actually, it's not much better. So yeah, you're right. Eric Wolf is probably the guy you'd want up there.
Eric Wolf or Mike Springer. Literally anyone else in that pack, as you mentioned.
I thought that whole group was coming with them, but you're right. Edwards, Hesgard, and Wilkins. Wilkins now on the tail end of the inside line. Edwards and Hesgard working as teammates in tandem here. They're going to try to get to the lead. And not sure what the plan is then. I would assume that there's got to be, they have to leapfrog each other a little bit here, again, to do that fuel strategy. But they pit a little bit later. They pit a few laps later, so...
Right.
But again, if Edwards burns off too much fuel...
And that
come down maybe at the same time.
They absolutely powered past those guys.
Yeah, Steve Turner, he mentioned that in the interview during the pace lap. He said it's like this, and there you go. Okay, Hesgard's going to take a lead now for a while.
And while this is happening, that second group did catch the first group, and I feel like part of that is because of the less aggressive driving that we've seen from the 38 of Mike London and the 27 of John Theodore. We've seen those guys kind of just lay off the bumper.
Yeah, a little bit of a gap there, yeah.
And when that happens, I mean, look at the speed. We were making fun of this second group just a second ago, and they're getting ready to pass these guys. And it looks like they were, on the losing end of a demolition derby.
Just look at the gap between Hesgard and Edwards. And again, like they came in about a lap or 2 later than that group that they just passed. So they can get to 64, 62 easier. They don't have to save as much.
I wonder...
But they're still going to have to save
It's very interesting to me that Eric Hutton, who was just leading this group, has dropped so far back. I wonder if these guys are trying to maybe give themselves another gap.
They're saving.
Yeah, so they can...
And they're saving, too. Theodore's been coming over, and they're all in saving mode right now, trying to get to the point where they can go the rest of the race. This green flag stop is the last one they have to do.
Well,
they can go as deep as they can, and then they can just go balls out the rest of the way.
I mean, as it stands right now, Martin, Talladega is a prime time place for first-time winners. And in that first group, the only winners that we've had in the Cup Series is Thomas Harmon and Eric Wolf. I don't believe Mike Springer has ever won a DRL Cup Series race. And most of these this top group isn't even a Cup driver at all. The first four.
Yeah, you look at the first 4 cars, right?
The first 4 cars we'll see in tomorrow. We'll see in tomorrow's race that they're Grand National regulars. So very, very interesting. And Talladega is always good for that.
Yeah, you got four Grand National guys and then 4 Cup guys in this lead group now. And this group, they've been working together for a while since they pit and since they were gapped. Basically, it's just that first caution where these guys, some of these guys were collected in it. Gary Cronenwet was collected within that. Rex, Isabello, Tom Harmon. They've been working together, kind of hanging back, and now they're in the lead in this lead group. That other group, they're dropping back. They are 3 seconds back now.
Now, I'm looking here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Martin, and maybe you don't know this information off the top of your head, but if the 2 or the 3 car were to win, they would be part of that elite group that we have of a driver that has won in all 3 series. That group isn't very large. I don't even think Anthony Burrows is included in that group. I don't think Anthony Burrows has won a B race, or I know he never runs in the truck series very often. Ryan Hesgaard, James Morello, right now, I know they've both won in Grand National, they've won in the truck series, and they could be the next drivers to be added to the small list of Dynasty League series-wide winners. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to think who that includes. I think Wade Hustad is one of the few.
Wade Hustad, Chad Presnall, who's not with us tonight. I can't think of any. Maybe Eric Wolf.
That's about it.
I know Eric Wolf ran some.
Hasn't really run any trucks or Grand National really. So, yeah, it's Wade Hustad and Chad Presnall. Those 2 guys did a lot of truck racing last year, and they collected some wins there. Wade Hustad, both of them, yeah, they've gone down and done Grand National trucks.
Well, and Ryan Hesgaard would be the first to do it this season because Wade Hustad has not won a B race. Ryan Hesgaard won at Auto Club in the trucks
and the Grand National.
Yep. So this could be a big race for Ryan Hesgaard and that S2R team as a whole.
I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up. If he's planning on racing all 3 this weekend, and maybe he tries to go for the sweep.
Certainly, obviously, very, very hard to do at Talladega, but I mean, if you have the teammates with you and you have the coordination, there's no reason why you can't. And speaking of coordination, we see the DPR guys have lined up, maybe trying to see if they can put a little bit of pressure on the S2R guys. S2R on that inside line, first, second, fourth, and fifth, with the SGK Racing of Gary Cronenwet kind of sitting there in the sandwich of S2R, but all those guys on the outside, Taylor Butcher Benjamin, Eric Wolf, and Mike Springer, those are all dysfunctional Patriot drivers. So right now, it's not surprising to see the first, 8 cars have almost everyone on 2 different teams. As Chris James, we see him now. He is back after fixing his damage. It has to be heartbreaking for Chris James. He's, anytime you go to Talladega, people that want to get that Cup win so bad, it's such a good opportunity if you can stay clean in it. There's just a small little mental error for Chris James, and obviously he has a pristine car. That wasn't the issue. And look at Mike Springer, Eric Wolf. My goodness.
Wow, it's like you just look away and suddenly was just looking at Chris James and they just swooped by him and didn't realize they were moving.
And this will give Eric Wolf that much needed bonus point for point standings. Mike Springer could also use a bonus point as well, as his last couple weeks have not gone to plan.
And again, this is going to help with fuel for Hesgaard. It's going to help. I mean, Edwards has already been tucked in for a while. It's going to help. The rotation of leaders in this group and it's the same thing they're doing in the second pack, is that they're rotating leaders so that their fuel is about the same level, so there's not one guy needing to go in way early and breaking up the strategy.
Yeah, and looking back to the second pack, led by Dustin Musil, Jeremy Hebel, who's kind of been the pushing car for most of this sequence here. He was tucked behind 78 of Eric Hutton for a very long time.
Yeah, Hutton basically in the back of that group now. Wilkins going to be making the move. So Steve Turner has to go in now. He's run out of fuel. He's running low on fuel. So that was that strategy. It's like if he had stayed out in front the whole way, he would have gone in a lot earlier. Probably lap 58, 57.
So, let's see who goes in with Steve Turner, though. This already small group of drivers back here.
Together? Is this close enough to their strategy? And it looks like
it'll be 4 cars that come in with him. Jeremy Hebel, who's proved to be a good pusher, Jim Westerfield, and Eric Hutton. So basically the leaders of that second group, the guys that were leading the race earlier, they all come and pit together. And it's only a matter of time now.
This time. Yeah, so this next little group here of Lemon, Musial, Wilkins, and Theodore, they're going to go in this next lap. And I guess they're hoping they can somehow catch those other guys and make a big line again, but it's going to be a little bit harder with only 4.
Right,
4
and
cars.
This is going to be the most important pit stop of the day for these guys. One little mistake here and your race is over. That's just the way it is, unless we get a caution or something like that, which at this point in time, with how nice these drivers have been playing after they saw the one little mistake take out so many good cars earlier on, that was almost like it sent a memo to these other drivers to, oh, that's right, we have 94 laps, Martin. Maybe we should chill out a bit, eh? Jeez.
Oh, that might be the mistake of the race right there, is that they did not all go down with Steve Turner, and I think it was because Steve Turner had to go down a little bit, like a lap sooner than they wanted, and I think they were just a little afraid of that, so they didn't all commit.
Right.
If this lead group of 9 cars all go down together, they all stick together, it's over. That second group, they're split. That second group is split into 4 cars each now.
Yeah, we'll
They're
see what
have a
happens.
hard time if these guys stay together. Now, if these guys split up as well and they go half, 5 and 4, or whatever it is.
Well, it's tough because you almost want to split up because 9 cars trying to go from 200 miles an hour to 55.
It's true.
At the same time can be a little interesting, but we also do have 2 very distinct teams.
Yeah, we do have 2 teams also, so it could easily split again.
Gary Cronenwet right now is really the X factor here. He's the only one that's not part of the 2 big teams. He's by himself.
Fifth guy.
Yep, he's by himself because he's going in this time by.
Who's going in here? Okay, so S2R is going
S2R.
in. I saw Gary Cronenwet go with him. I only saw 4 cars. I'm like, who's the S2R guy not going in?
But now one thing,
a little bit of shuffling there because of how they. That's a little bit of the trouble when you go in 3 or 4 wide, is that you get guys in that inside left lane where they shouldn't be.
Right. Now Chris James, who's several laps down after getting that engine repaired, he right now is playing good teammate because he is also part of DPR, and so this is 4 DPR drivers right here all in a row, and you see just the teammate or the team strategy
so
all come to play.
Yeah. Ooh, he was that 4th car. I didn't even realize that the 82 was that 4th car. So he's not even on the lead lap.
No, and
he is playing.
Chris James is actually, he only spent 11 laps out on gas.
He's definitely in teammate mode right now.
This is his only purpose in life now after he blew that engine.
Well, actually, we go with that group of cars that came in. And they came in 2 groups. They're all back together, actually. They got back together. So I take back everything I said about them being dead in the water because they...
They did. No, it's interesting.
They've got 9 cars, including the blinking 44. He might not be a ton of help because he's blinking in and out, but they've got 4 cars. They split up and they came back out and they're hooked back up. Jeremy Hebel and Turner leading the way right now.
Now, because they came in a lap or 2 early, there still might be a little bit of, there might be a little bit of fuel saving yet, but at some point you got to drop the hammer.
Yeah, because Steve Turner and the guys that came in with Turner, they came in a lap 61 going into 62. And a lot of discussion, it sounded like they wanted to get in on 62, 63. And so they came in about a lap or two early because Turner was running on fumes.
Now,
That's because I think he was just out front too long. So there's gonna have to be a lot of rotation of these leaders.
heartbreaking here. We're watching Chris Lucky, our leader, pit all by himself, Martin.
Yeah, Chris Lucky is a guy that seems like all season. I mean, he's on a team with his brother, I'm assuming, Richard Lucky. They qualified right next to each other actually, and it hasn't been a season where you've seen a lot of teamwork between him and his brother because they've been caught on different ends of the track. It seems. One guy gets through a wreck, the other guy gets caught, and Lucky just ends up he stays out and he's always running his own race. It looks like.
Riding on board with Chris James, who is not running third.
He's always running his own race. It looks like. Well, that's interesting that those guys haven't come in yet, have they? Oh, no, they did. They just came in, right?
Everyone has been to the pits.
How are they still ahead of everyone? That's weird.
Well, Eric Wolf is our not our new leader. He was our leader before the pits. Everything has cycled back, and it's the same two little groups of drivers. But it looks like they lost Taylor Butcher Benjamin.
What's confusing for me, I'm confused by this because obviously, I guess they were ahead of a lap. I don't understand how I don't understand how that second group is 17 seconds back. You think the gap would have closed because this group had to come in and pit, but
Well, part of the reason might be because last time by they were 0.5 of a second slower. They were half a second slower, so they might still be conserving fuel. While these guys up here, they no longer have to do that, and they know that the harder that they push, the further they get away from that second group, which means the race for the lead, here in a few laps, will be consisting of 8 drivers or 7 drivers and not 20. But I'm curious to see what happened to Taylor Butcher Benjamin, who was part of this group, and after pit stops, he's now 10 seconds back. Kind of in his own little world here, and Eric Hutton is 7 seconds back of him. I mean, Martin, I'm looking back at the second group, and they're still racing side by side. They're still so spread out. At this point, I think they might have just messed up their fuel strategy where they have to save some, and these guys aren't pushing very aggressively at all, and they're going to continue to lose time to this top group that is definitely more on the same page.
Well, that's what I said with that second group, and we called them. Now they're the top group. But they were hanging back early in the race. I mean, a bunch of them got caught up in that first caution. But they've been hanging back. They hung back a lot of the race. And then they just had that run right before the pit stops. But the green flag stop before, they had pit a couple laps after this second group now that includes Steve Turner, Jeremy Hebel, John Theodore. They had actually pit a little bit later, so they could go later anyway. And so they were able to run harder, and they knew they would be able to get deeper. If they just ran hard, they would still be able to get to that lap 65 easily.
Right.
Because they had pit later to begin with
right.
on that first green flag run.
No, and
this group now, this second group with Eric Hutton and Jeremy Hebel, they had pit earlier, so they had to save fuel just to make the the second green flag stop, and they didn't save enough fuel that time, and Steve Turner had to come in a little bit early.
Yeah,
and so they're gonna be right on the edge, and that's not gonna be helpful for them to compete.
Yeah, and it's almost to that point where Steve Turner kind of if that was my group of cars, I would kindly tell Steve Turner that what, buddy, sorry. It just didn't work out this time. I can't pit yet because now they're so far behind.
Yeah, and the point of doing that would have been as that second green flag stop was coming up, that it's like, oh, Turner's running out of fuel a lot sooner than us. And I think it was because they did not rotate. They did not rotate leaders as soon as they should have. I think Turner stayed out front a little bit too long. Well, I think John Theodore was the one who was kind of saying, hey, we need to rotate. And probably mentioned it a little bit too late.
Well, with just about 20 laps to go, Martin, this is shaping up to be a very, very interesting race. We have DPR 1, 2, 3, SGK Racing 4th, and then S2R Racing 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So, very, very interesting race coming up here in the next 20 laps. They have enough fuel to the end, so if this goes green, it's going to be very, very fun to watch, very much. It's going to be the battle of two teams, and whoever Gary Cronin wants to go with at this point. So,
well, that second group of cars, you hear them back there. They're chiming up and saying, hey, I see debris on the track. Debris caution, debris caution.
Yeah, I mean, at one point...
the 82 has actually blinked out. So there's a gap between Gary Cronenwet and Mike Springer. And if I'm Cronenwet, I want to close that gap, but I'm also a little nervous because Chris James might still be on his end of things racing there. And I saw this in my last official race where a guy was racing, and on his screen, he was still there. And everyone was still there, and then a guy from the high line came in and slammed into him. On our screen, the guy from the high line came into an open spot where that guy had been and disappeared. His throughput has fell through, so he is off the track, so Gary Cronenwet is safe to close that gap. DPR is down to those two guys in the lead.
Yeah, with Taylor Butcher Benjamin falling off. Now, one other little tidbit we see here. We saw Chris James playing the good teammate earlier. Look at the tail end of this group. You got the Lucky family, brothers, twins, whatever. They're back there together now, even though one is 3 laps down.
I was just going to say Lucky's down 3 laps, but there's 2 Luckies. Richard Lucky is down 3 laps. Chris Lucky is down 1 lap. But they're going to work together. They're going to stay. It's better to be racing around people that are moving with speed. There's nothing worse than just driving around this track going about 160.
Right.
It's really, really tiresome.
Well, DRL TV is going to take a little bit of break. We're going to get you to the end of this race when we return, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Martin and I will return in about 60 seconds. And welcome back to DRL TV. 14 laps to go in the Dega 250. Nothing's really changed here since we took a break. We still have two distinct groups. One 17 seconds back of these top 7 here. 18 seconds back now, so a lot of work to be done by that second group if we're going to try to come up and challenge these guys in the next 14 laps, Martin. We see two teammates up here. Chris James, who you mentioned had lagged out earlier, was able to rejoin the race and is now all of a sudden connected back to this lead group. So
yeah, he's just sticking around.
DPR is still 3 strong up front with the 4 cars of S2R. And, you know, at what point, obviously, the teammate thing has worked up until now. But at what point do you say, okay, teammate, that's cool and everything, but I kind of want to win this race?
I think in the last few laps, last couple laps, you get in that position, then you go 3 or 4 wide with your teammates. I'm looking at the standings right now because Mike Springer's on the lead. This will be his first Cup win ever. He's currently 5th in points. But I'm looking at the hard luck drivers today. Wade Hustad leading the points. He got wrecked out early. Joe Helt, he was 4th in points. He got wrecked out in that first wreck. Chris James, 3rd in points. He's right here. He's still running, but he's down 43, 44 laps, something like that. 43 laps right now. Thomas Harmon, 2nd place. And Mike Springer, those two guys.
Yeah, this could be a big...
They're going to have a good point haul day if they can stay upright. Chris Lucky running 6th place on the point standing. He's right there, bringing Chris James up next to his DPR teammates.
No, and that's
top
huge.
5 guys. Yeah, it's a few of those top 5 guys. 3 of them, Wade Hustad, James, and Held, having a little bit of tough luck today.
But also to the other end of that point, of the guys that are in the top 5, 6, 7 running spots right now, I believe only 3 of them are actually points drivers. So
yeah, this is gonna be a good day for Eric Wolf. Wolf just cracked the top 20 for the first time this season after Richmond. And he's definitely going to move up after this race ahead of guys like Eli Hinton, Hunter Johnson, who did not race today. Alexander Russell got a good one.
Ooh, a spinner.
Oh,
no. I couldn't catch who that was. Let me try.
It was Alexander Russell, who's been blinking in and out all
Alexander
day.
Russell running through the grass here.
Yeah, he got... Let's see what happened here. Oh, yeah, you know what happened? He blinked right back in right as they were entering the tri-oval. He blinked right back in, right in between Dakota Wilkins and Jeremy Hebel. Not enough space for his car.
Martin, look at this. The lead group has caught that second group of drivers.
Yeah, they're going to lap them.
They're going to try to put them a lap down. That is not something that I anticipated seeing. And that is
Alexander Russell. Yeah, it's not
No.
But Alexander Russell's having connection issues all day, blinking. And as I said, that was one thing that you don't want to have happen, where that guy is driving, he sees where he is, but no one else sees where he is. And suddenly he pops up into a gap that is not big enough for his car to be in, and that's where he got bumped out, and that's why he was flying through the grass and spinning.
So now, right here, all of a sudden, there's a huge group of cars, and there's people like William Edwards, who's technically in 7th spot, but he has to pass 14 cars to get to the lead. This is crazy. Now all of a sudden 3 wide, so the action is picking up.
Chris James and Chris Lucky working their way in there to get behind Gary Cronenwet. And that's a guy we've talked about. We've said his name a lot, but we haven't talked about him as a guy that could possibly pulls right in front of Thomas Harmon. He's blocking right now. not sure what his goal was there. I think he's trying to block that further outside line.
Well, that outside
Hoping that
line
his line could
consists
be the
of
one to move at. Now Cronenwet points out. Oh, there he is. Wow, that's getting a little hairy here. And connection issues are starting to sprout up for some of these lead pack guys. But yeah, it's 3 wide. Now the Harmon line is starting to, the S2R line is starting to drop back a little bit.
But another thing that this did to help Gary, if Gary could get Mike in front of him, all of a sudden that's 2 SGK teammates that would be together.
Yeah, the problem is Gary's having some connection issues, which are, I think, is gonna bring out a yellow at some point here. If that one was very close. What's interesting, you look at that inside line right now, the line behind Mike Springer and Eric Wolf. All those guys are now a lap down.
Yeah, so if a caution were to come out, only Mike Lemon would get that lap back. Obviously, everyone else would take a wave around.
There goes Gary Cronenwet. He's actually now, because of the lead change between Wolf and Springer, gave him a little bit of a run.
But,
Yeah,
also behind him is Chris James, a DPR teammate. Not sure how apt he is to push him past his own teammates. So Chris James actually lays off of Gary Cronenwet, not allowing him to pass his teammates.
He laid off a little bit, and also Chris Lucky backed out and went into he's now in the S2R line. And Jeremy Hebel's hooked up with that, kind of figured out which line he wants to be in.
4 wide, Martin.
Oh, man. Yeah, Chris Lucky now being bounced out. He's going to fall back. Look how tight that is. Ooh, Bill Edwards and Chris James making a little bit of contact. Ooh, and Hesgard and Harmon don't turn each other.
Just inside 5 to go. So to answer my own question earlier, this was when he said, this is going to be the time where you say, teammates, sorry, buddy. Because right in that moment, you saw exactly what happened. Ryan Hesgard had an opportunity to push his teammate, Thomas Harmon, and he kind of decided not to. As Gary Cronenwet does get in line.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of that and a little bit of that. James Lorello was right on his bumper. I don't think there was just nowhere. Hesgard could not even slow down and prepare to let the 68 in front of him. And it was at the point where it's like he either had to completely bounce the outside and go, or take out the 68 completely.
Well, Mike Springer, he's in the catbird seat right now because you can block here a little. But it's also, as we've seen, it's very dangerous to block here, as Hesgard does get to his outside, being pushed by James Lorello.
This is such an interesting finish here because all these guys that are pushing now, because the lead group, the 12, the 2, the 75, the 3, the 68, the 24, and the 10, those guys are all on the lead lap. They're racing for the win. Right behind them, the 99, the 27, the 38, and everything on back, those guys are all lapped cars. And they're just pushing. They're just giving these guys, they're making the line, which line's going to be the one to get the win. So they still have a part to play. And I don't think any of these guys are teammates, except for Mike Lemon, being teammates with Gary Cronenwet. None of these lapped car guys are teammates.
Oh, Hebel! Wreck!
And that's going to be... Let's see what happened there. You know what it was? It was netcode Gary Cronenwet. I think it was netcode between Gary Cronenwet and the Theodore, because Theodore gets bumped up. So what happened, or what probably happened on someone's screen, is that the 10 bumped up into the 27, the 27 bumped up into the 99, and threw him into the 93 and 21. Those guys getting lapped. Cronenwet was having some connection issues.
It seemed like Theodore just kind of moved up a little bit. I don't know if that was. Let's try to take one more look.
It looks like from what I'm seeing. It looks like there's sparks between. Suddenly there's sparks on his thing.
Sure.
It was netcode. I mean, it was netcode. On somebody's screen. Probably on the 10 screen, he bumped the 27, or maybe on the 27 screen, he got bumped by 10. We don't see it, but the 10 moved, the 27 moved, and got into the 99, it was a chain of events. They were hitting each other. Well, we don't always see it as that, but that looks like what was happening. Jeremy Hebel coming around, he's smoking the 27, some heavy damage.
Well, what this might do, I don't know if we'll go back green. This would award Ryan Hesgaard the win, Mike Springer second, James Lorello third. I don't think they're going to be going back green. My goodness, what a finish that ended up becoming. And right now we've got Thomas Harmon scored in 7th. Eric Wolf scored in 4th. And 1st, 3rd, 5th, 6th, those are all non-points drivers.
Yeah, they're talking about the netcode, and it was a big netcode, but again, it was the issue that when you don't always see what's actually happening. iRacing, the cars are moving around on iRacing, and visually, what you might be seeing is not exactly what's happening on track always.
Right.
Because for the 10 might have seen that the 10 might have shifted up into the 27, and on his screen, he might have seen that he hit the 27. On the 27 screen, he doesn't see the 10 actually hitting him, but gets bumped by that netcode. The 27 then might have actually, on his screen, bumped the 99. And then for us, we don't see them actually, any of them bumping into each other at all. Or from my end, I think I saw the 27 actually hit the 99. But he said, like, the 90, James, our race control and league owner, he's saying he didn't even see that the 27 and 99 didn't even hit each other. So it looks like, it depends on where you're at. It's going to look like netcode. For other people, it's going to be, well, that's what happened. And what happened was the 10 moved. The 10 moved up a little bit, caught a little bit of the 27. 27 caught the 99. That's what happened. Whether, obviously not everyone's going to see the same thing, because that's just how the nature of online racing at this point in its development.
One thing
someday we'll get away from that.
Right. Well, one thing we do know for sure, John Theodore is now scored to 16th, which is not the day that he had going. That's for sure. And another thing is the move of the race. We talked about it. James Lorello pushing Ryan Hesgaard past Thomas Harmon. If Thomas Harmon catches that front bumper of Hesgaard, he wins this race. Thomas Harmon gets pushed to the win, but Ryan Hesgaard gets to the outside of him.
And it was so close that I think Harmon was trying. I don't know if Hesgaard was just like, nope, it's not going to happen. I don't know if it was just because Lorello was not letting it happen, because Lorello was right on his bumper and there wasn't enough room. There just wasn't any give in the push for Hesgaard to let off just a hair to let Harmon slip in front of him. And so that's going to be, Hesgaard's going to come away with the win, it looks like.
And because Talladega, we talked about it, it's a wild card. Ryan Hesgaard comes into his first Cup race of the season, and is able to get a victory.
I'm going to say that's a bummer. It's a bummer the way that finished. I would have hoped they could have finished under green. It's just because, man, Mike Springer has got to be just kicking himself again. He's so close.
Right. No, he and Eric Wolf played it. Yeah, he and Eric Wolf played it as well as they possibly could. But we saw after Mike Springer's race last week at Richmond, where he just couldn't get out of the way from all the issues. We see, coming home with second, not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But while we're pacing here, just to remind everyone that this was a Dega 250. Next week, DRL TV takes the Cup Series to Dover, Delaware for the Monster Mile. Always a great race where, I believe the defending race winner there is Wade Hustad. It was actually Anthony Burrows who beat Hustad and Honeycutt. So maybe we'll see Burrows back next week for Dover with this new package. Every week it seems like Martin is going to be a whole new experience. So, with the new grip and everything, Dover is going to be a completely different track than what we're used to. Our next broadcast could be tomorrow for the Grand National race. It'll also be here at Talladega with Ryan Hesgard, with James Zarello, and some of these other drivers from Cup will also be dropping down. So I do expect a much larger field even tomorrow for the Grand National Series race, Martin. So lots of fun action in store for tomorrow. And before these drivers cross the start-finish line, just have to thank all the viewers for watching here tonight. If you do like the broadcast, if you do like a particular driver that runs in any of these series, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. You will be notified anytime that we go live. But as of right now, Martin, Ryan Hesgard comes away with his first Cup victory and our first driver to win in all 3 series this season. Mike Springer second, James Zarello third, Eric Wolf in fourth.
Yeah, I mean, you see, that finish, Hesgard. You see a little bit of Gary Cronenwed giving him a little nudge. And Cronenwed a nice finish in 6th, even despite starting that final caution. And that's sometimes how it goes. That's just the way it is on the final lap, or final couple laps. It wasn't malicious on Gary Cronenwed. He had been blinking a little bit. It's a little bit of a sour taste for all of us when you see it kind of go down like that, where netcode played so much of it.
Well, I mean, and obviously something must have happened on Theodore's end, because I didn't see any contact between he or Heeble either, and it could have just been a server flare-up. It could have been anything.
Yeah, I think it all flared up. Is that Cronenwed kind of, I don't know if if he blinked and that, but he somehow bumped into 27, and the 27. iRacing said the 27 bumped into 99. None of them bumped into each other on our screen, but that's netcode. That's what happens, is that sometimes the visuals don't always match up with where the internet thinks the car actually is, and so that sometimes makes it very hard for a driver when you think you got about a nice big giant gap, and there actually isn't a gap there.
Well, and unfortunately, it left a few drivers heartbroken, especially John Theodore, who he could have had a little bit better finish than what he had here today. As we watch Ryan Hesgard burn it out just a little bit, we're going to pull in the 3rd place finisher. Pull in James Zarello here. James Zarello, do you have a copy, sir?
Gotcha, man.
Well, you come out with some fresh paint, buddy. Courtesy of the driver next to you and Fatal Concepts paint. You're driving that sharp gold 3 Chevy. But more importantly, you come out here 3rd, and you and Hesgard had the move of the race where you pushed past your teammate Thomas Harmon. Tell us about those final laps, and had that gone green, did you have something to get that lead from Hesgard?
Yeah, no, I could only push because I got caught up in that first wreck on lap 2 or whatever it was, and so I needed to be the middle car there, and I couldn't let off the gas either. So when we got to the outside, there was no letting up, otherwise I would have got run over. So we just had to push through. But that was exciting, a couple last laps there, and 4 wide for a little bit, and it was just fun pushing in these cars.
Right. Well, is there anything that you can take from today, James? Obviously, tomorrow we know that you run Grand National for points. Is there anything that you can take away from tonight and maybe use it for tomorrow, or are these cars, pretty, pretty different from one another?
Yeah, I think we got to work together nicely, S2R, on the pit stops and that sort of thing, but when it comes to the drafting of these cars, you can't push as hard in the Grand National as you can in these Cup cars. I mean, you could push all the way through the corner here and really not wreck somebody, so it's going to be a little bit easier, I think, on the throttle and the B cars, but hopefully we still have the same showing.
Well, congratulations again, James, on your 3rd, and we will see you tomorrow night in the Grand National Series.
Sounds good. Glad to be running up here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. We'll drop James back down to his teammates in S2R, and we'll bring up Mike Springer. Mike Springer, you have a copy, sir?
Yeah, how's it going?
You ran in the back for most of that race, and then you and Eric Wolf decided to kind of put the hammer down. And for the last third of that race, it was you and Eric Wolf up front. And just at the end there, you get edged out by Ryan Hesgaard just before the caution comes out. And Martin even mentioned it. How heartbreaking that has to be for you. But you still come home second. So I mean, which end of the spectrum is it? Are you disappointed in not getting the win, or are you just happy to finally get a second place here and maybe start turning your season around?
Oh no, I'm happy. Our strategy worked. I didn't race any Talladega this weekend. I kind of took the weekend off from racing iRacing, so that was my first Talladega race with this package, and it was fun. The strategy was to stay in the back, and then Eric and I decided let's try to go to the front to lead that pack because I think everybody had damage besides us. We wanted to go faster, create a gap on that other group that pitted, and then he wasn't going to make it on gas. I think to the end, he might have been a quarter of a lap short. So that's why I was passing him. We were doing that tandem thing where you pass, and he was trying to save fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment of the caution, I think he was saving a little bit of fuel to come off the corner and give me a bump. And I think that's why they were a little closer. And he was just, I don't know how close it was. I think he was, a couple feet behind him when the caution came out.
It was pretty close. It was pretty close.
I hope it's more than a couple feet. If it's less, I'm going to be really, really bummed. No, it was a good race. That's good drafting. The package is a lot better. I hope the show was fun for everybody to watch. So I don't mind. It was a good race.
No, absolutely. But, coming off of, we documented your issues last week at Richmond. You come off of that, even though this is a super speedway, can you use any of that momentum going, to a track next week at Dover?
Oh yeah, definitely. I like Dover. It's a fun track. Some of the tracks that are coming up are going to be right in my wheelhouse. We'll get to the road course because I'm quick there.
Yep.
Yeah, this part of the schedule is kind of, that's what I get through the first 10 and then let's go.
Well, Mike, it was a pleasure watching you out there tonight. Is there any shout outs that you want to give here while we have you?
Oh, thanks to everybody in the league. Thanks. I like that the other guys came up and raced with us. I know, truck guys and the B car guys. I didn't mind it. We had a full field. It's going to make them quicker. It's going to make everybody better in the long run. It was fun racing with my dad for 2 laps. So that was good times.
2 laps.
Yeah, he's got that eyesight. You can't avoid the wrecks, I guess. I don't know. No, he asked me, what are you going to do before the race? I said, I'm going to the back, and then I'll come to the front and see at the end. And they wanted to qualify, so most of the team I was with wanted to qualify, and they all were up the front at the beginning, and I just kind of hung out in the back. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned that for the rest of the season, at least, for the foreseeable future, there is a list of specific drivers from the bottom 2 series that will be able to come up at any time and run with the Cup, help strengthen that field out. And, it's good to hear from a points regulator that is something that you actually, you like and appreciate. So that's good. But next week
I'm a
at Dover.
Driver, so I don't mind it. They don't give me problems. I'm going to avoid them. I'm one of the cleaner drivers, I think, in the league. So I'm not going to have an issue with anybody anyways.
Right.
So, and then they'll learn from us around. So
well, maybe I'll see you next week at Dover, and it'll give me a great opportunity to wreck you. And
oh no, go for it, dude. I mean, you got the IndyCar league started. I'm gonna ruin all your IndyCar racing.
Right.
No, I look forward to racing you, Getty. You're fast, so you have no. It's gonna be me catching you at times.
No, regardless, it's gonna be a ton of fun. A mix of a lot of different skill levels and personalities, and we saw tonight. We often talk to you as a road course guy. Anytime I think of Mike Springer, I think of road courses. You and I had great battles all winter in the Skip Barber series that we had here in DRL. Tons of fun. But to see you come out at a 2.6 mile oval and have a great run, that's also, it's awesome. It was a fun little surprise. Not to say that, you're bad at super speedway racing, but to see, like a road course specialist per se come out here and finish second, that's got to be huge. And then, you said going into the next several races are tracks that are a little bit stronger for you, Mike. So we look forward to seeing you. Keep those finishes up. I mean, you're only 5th in standings, but this in combination with some of the rougher races that the guys ahead of you had, this is going to close the gap, Mike. So you'll be able to, move on up, put yourself in a great position here for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I look forward to it. It should be fun. So you guys have a good night. Appreciate the race, and I look forward to watching it.
Awesome, Mike. Well, you have a good one. And you know what? As a guy who works for the Frito-Lay Company, I enjoy your sponsor.
Thank you. I'll probably switch it up a little bit, maybe two more times this year. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but it won't be on there the whole year. They haven't sent me anything, so no.
Right.
I like the bright colors and the kind of the oddball scheme. So
No,
we'll
that's
see.
awesome. Well, Mike, you have a good one, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
All right, see you later.
And we'll put Mike down with his DPR teammates, and now we're going to bring in our race winner. We're going to bring in Ryan Hesgard here. Ryan Hesgard, do you have a copy?
Yeah, I do.
Well, as I documented earlier, you become the first driver to win in all 3 series this season. Now, maybe some of it you have to take with a grain of salt here at Talladega because, it is, parity is huge here. But, how important is it for you, no matter where it's at, to get that A win finally, even if it has a plate like Talladega?
This is huge. Huge confidence boost. This year I was a little skeptical on if I had enough, talent even to run up here with these guys. And I know Talladega's Talladega, but running with the teammates, this definitely gives me a confidence boost going in for next year, and helps give me the ease of mind that you are ready to move up.
Right. Well, and we'll see that more in the weeks to come. Next week, we actually go to a track that you yourself, who are normally, a fairly modest, fairly humble driver, you yourself know. You've gone on record saying that you're very, very strong at Dover. So hopefully we could see something out of you next week as well. That'll be a good measuring stick, I believe. But tonight,
let's get through Talladega and our
right. Well, just talk about Cup specifically. Tonight. The move of the race, I spoke to James, the move of the race, and we mentioned it live as it happened, was you driving basically through Thomas Harmon. If he is able to stay in front of your bumper, Thomas Harmon wins that race. He wasn't. You passed him. You win the race. Just getting past Springer there at the end as the caution came out. You played that pretty well. Can you go through that little moment there and tell us kind of what was going through your mind?
Yeah, so before the race, we don't get many opportunities where we can have 7 teammates in a race. So the game plan was to try to help those that haven't had a win yet. So that was the plan. And then lap 2 ruined that plan, and 3 of our drivers got taken out, which was very, very unfortunate. So the plan became to help the cup regular get a win. And then it was unfolding absolutely perfectly, and we played the fuel strategy game. I don't want to say we played it perfect. It was a little bit closer than I would have liked it to be,
right.
But my car just blew up. No, so we're after that second pit stop. We knew we had to save a little bit, 3 laps maybe, just for that peace of mind. So that's what we did. Fortunately we got Eric and Mike in front of us, and Chris there, so we were able to save. And we got to the 10 to go mark, and it's like, okay, we need to get Tom to the front of our team group here. That way we can at least push him to victory. And then that second group, I did not think we'd catch them. I thought they were behind us, to be honest with you. So when they came out of nowhere, it got really hectic there. At one point, I had no idea if we were 2 wide, 3 wide, 4 wide. I just knew I couldn't move over. Like, that's like how I game planned it. And I believe it was Lorello behind me, but behind him, I think it was one of the lucky guys. He was just giving Lorello such a good shot, and Lorello was giving me such a good bump that I the closing rate on Tom, I wanted to stay with Tom as much as possible, but I would have turned him. So I had to go to the outside. It wasn't planned. I didn't want to. It just, Talladega happened.
Right.
So I had to go on the outside, not to pass a teammate or not to wreck a teammate. Luckily I don't know if it goes green if I win. I mean, that's about as close as we were getting. Lorello had a little bit of damage, but I had a strong card all night, so we were definitely going to give it a run for their money and hopefully cycle Tom back through there. But that wreck happened, and fortunately we were in front.
Well, Ryan, I know you always have some shout-outs to give before we let you go. Let's take this opportunity to do that now.
Yeah, shout out to SGK. Gary worked with us all night. His game plan and my game plan weren't on the same page there for most of the race. But towards the end, I think he wanted to work with the S2R guys more than Eric and Mike. So big thank you to, all the practice that we do with you guys. That it pays off in these types of races for sure. So big thank you to you and your race team. I got to give a shout out to Wade, Joe, and Spencer. It sucks so bad that they got taken out on lap 2. Not what we come up here to want to see. It's unfortunate. It's discouraging for the whole team when we see, our most talented guys get taken out right away. So shout out to them. We got the win for those guys. And then, big thank you to you guys at DRL in the booth. I know there's a lot of things going on right now, and people have to step up in certain places, so it takes a little bit more time. So big thank you to you. We appreciate that. Big thank you to the DRL admins as a whole for all the work they do. And as always, I always end with my friends and teammates. Without them, we're not even playing this. So big thank you to everybody I just mentioned.
Awesome, Ryan. Well, again, you're the first driver to win all 3 this season, and one of the few drivers to win all 3 just overall in the Dynasty Racing League. So congrats on your win today at Talladega, and we'll see you tomorrow where you and I get to go kind of, try to figure out this place in the B Series. So have a good night, and congratulations on your victory here in the Cup Series.
Thanks, Getty.
Now that was Ryan Hesgaard, currently leading the points in the B Series, but also he finally gets that first win. I know that was a something that he definitely wanted to do, kind of his bucket list. So congratulations to him. Crazy finish there, Martin. And before we go, we just got to remind you that next week we are at the not the Milwaukee Mile, the Monster Mile in Dover, Delaware. 1 mile concrete finish, high banks. One of those iconic tracks that we go to. Very, very special track there. A lot of different landmarks there that, with the I can't remember his name. Martin, do you know the name of that? The monster that holds the car, and you've got the bridge that goes over the turn 2 exit. Just a lot of fun, interesting little things going into Dover, Delaware. So, Miles the monster. Thank you. I remembered myself. But Martin, what's your big takeaways as we leave Talladega here?
It was a good, exciting race. We had exciting, we got a little bit of a lull in between there where it was very much strategy and everyone trying to get back into a position to race. And then the end of the race just so happened to work out that the 2 groups that we had been watching all night, the lead group was starting to lap that second group, and then they all got into one. All of our racers that still had cars that were moving were all in the same place to finish that race. So that was really exciting, a good way to finish it. Kind of interesting how that worked out, because usually green flag stops, it separates the field, and you kind of get a little bit of a lull, but package was really cool. I mean, I've just never seen such the suck up, right. And the 2-car tandems that we saw tonight. And that was the first caution we had early, right at the beginning of the race, was Robbie Armstrong and Wade Hustad in tandem just flying on that outside line. And we saw that a number of times throughout the rest of the race, and that's something did not see last year. I didn't even see it at all during official races this week. So,
right, no, and
really cool package this week.
No, really, really cool package, and I asked you at the top of the broadcast, is this package an improvement over the old one? And I certainly, I'm guessing that your answer is yes. Yes, it is. But looking here, a crazy race tonight, a lot of shakeup in the points as we go back to kind of our usual type racing at Dover next week. A huge shout out to you, Martin. Thank you so much for joining us in the booth and doing all of the work here with the broadcast. You can see, all the graphics and things are from you personally. So you have to thank you for that. Thank you, James Pandolf, for our league owner. Thank everyone that's involved in the broadcast, the administration aspect, and also have to wish Ryan Branch, a good, hopefully that he's had a good evening. Hopefully he can come back next week, take over the show, and you and Ryan, Martin, you guys can go back to leading our week of broadcasting the right way, and I can't wait for next week at Dover. But this has been DRL TV, guys. Again, next week, Dover, Delaware. Make sure that you tune in. Tomorrow will be the Grand National Series, also at Talladega. We're at Talladega all week in all 3 series. And, Martin, do you have any closing statements here before we sign off?
I'll see you next week, and see you tomorrow night.
Awesome. Well, again, I'm Getty Buckner, filling in for Ryan Branch. Martin Wenzel has been next to me all night. This is DRL TV. We thank you, the viewers. You are the reasons. You're the reason why we do any of this at all. So if you like the broadcast, please make sure that you hit the like or subscribe button there on YouTube. And we will see you the next time we go live, which will be tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 Eastern.